All right, we are live talking DraftKings college football week 0. We are going to go through my lineup construction for this week. And with only 3 games, it's going to be interesting. I've kind of gotten away. Let's talk contest selection for a minute. I've kind of gotten away from playing cash games for college football. NFL, a lot more profitable there. College wise, it's quite difficult because everybody's using these services because it's more of a niche sport. And with me, I'm building pretty much what everybody else is building. So it's a 1v1, 2v2 situation most weeks. So I would tend to stick to tournaments. And if you are a newer player, stick to the 20 entries or less, single entry type contests. I'm hand building most of this stuff. I use a lineup builder for like NASCAR and a couple other sports. But in this instance, with college football, I don't see the relevance for me purchasing it because I have all the tools and I'm already kind of right where they are. Lineup exposure wise, you're going to want to pay attention to that. So, um, I'll end up playing that, but I think it makes less of a difference in college to try to get leverage on the field. Let's talk about my player pool for this week. So with a 3-game slate, ownership's going to be high on a number of players. You're going to be playing very tight. There should be a lot of variance here. DraftKings switched the pricing on this since we did the first look. I wasn't very happy about it because I like the free build where you can just leave money on the table. But they made the pricing a lot tighter. So contrary to FanDuel, where you can kind of do whatever the heck you want and jam in everybody, on DK, you're going to have to find a value play. So I'm going to include some of those in this. And narrowing down the player pool is always my number one thing each week. So looking at the player pool, quarterback wise, I think you can only play 3 guys on this 3-game slate. You could play Ali Hado from Hawaii, Maverick McIver, and Jalen Daniels. That's your 3 best plays. I don't think you can play Cole Branson. I just don't think he's very good. Hunter Watson, he's in a timeshare. Probably, I think Mabry Mettauer is going to play a good bit for Sam Houston. Phil Longo brought him along from Wisconsin with the intention that he's going to be able to play. So Watson's kind of getting kicked to the curb. If it was just Watson and we knew Mettauer's not going to play, then I would say you could take shots on Watson. But in this instance, it's just not possible. And EJ Warner he's right there with Cole Branson, and they only have a sub 20 team total. On a full slate, that team's a full avoid for me. But on a 3-gamer, you're trying to find upside, and I could see that being a fine play. A fine team to get a piece of, but I would not go overboard there. So 3 quarterbacks, that's all I'm going to be playing. Running back wise, player pool, top of it is going to be Daniel Highshaw and Micah Ford for Kansas and Stanford. And they're going to be my top 2 plays. They're valued very well. I'm going to play a ton of them. You'll see that when we go to lineup construction. My base pretty much has them. Next play, if you wanted to get different, I think Highshaw is going to be probably the most popular running back on the slate. If you want to get different, you could take LaShawn Williams. That's going to be a leverage play for me. He's going to be a lot cheaper. You don't really need that $800 in savings, but I think it's a good differentiator. I will have some LaShawn Williams over Highshaw. Ford's going to be featured across the board for me. You could make a leverage play off of Ford to go to Cole Tab. They have 2 of their running backs are banged up currently. I'm not sure that they will play. So it's a light running back room, which means I think Ford gets most of the work, but Tab is going to be involved, and he's 3,500. So he's a viable play. George Hart is probably the top back at Western Kentucky. He's a leverage off of the Lavelle Wright, who's priced at 6,900. He's a full avoid for me. I don't know what's going on in this Sam Houston running backfield. I would think it's going to be Elijah Green. He's played with for Longo before at North Carolina. but he wasn't listed on depth chart. So I'm going to end up fading that Sam Houston backfield. It could end up coming back to bite me in the butt, but I'm just going to fade them just because I don't know what's going to happen. If I was running 150, then yeah, I would take shots. But like I said, I'm going to try to stick to 20 entries or less for tournaments here. And then, so Bryson Donaldson is going to be the last guy. I'm going to have a share, maybe. I'll probably have one, maybe two shares of Donaldson at 6,700. He projects as the most points on the slate from a running back standpoint, but their team total so terrible. Kansas, I think, is slightly better, or definitely better. They might even cover that spread with a sub 20 team total. If this was any other, if there was more games on the slate and it was a full slate, Donaldson wouldn't even come sniffing a lineup for me. But in this situation, given Matt Entz from North Dakota State being the head coach, I think they're going to revert to a heavy run game script, and Donaldson could be the beneficiary there. Looking at wide receivers where it's going to get interesting, right? Fresno State, you could play Josiah Freeman. He's a big body wideout. He should be their number one. I don't think they throw the ball a ton on normal game scripts, but in this situation, playing from behind, I think he's a viable bring back for Highshaw and a number of situations. I'll have some shares of that, but most of my exposure is going to go towards two teams, Hawaii and Western Kentucky. Pofeli Ashlock, Nick Sinacle, Jackson Harris, and Brandon White. Brandon White's going to be your huge value play at 3,500 for Hawaii. He's going to be the starting wide receiver. He's number 4. I mean, they start 4 wideouts. So he's going to be the 4th wide receiver in the rotation, but he's going to be number on the field constantly. Jackson Harris is going to be your 3. He's 5,100. He's priced a little too close to Sinacle. So I think most people are just going to pay up for Sinacle instead of going to Harris. Harris, that makes him good leverage. I'm going to have some of him. It's viable to play 3 Hawaii wideouts. If Alijado's in your lineup, I would probably try to jam 2 no matter what. But I think you can get 3 in there, and I will play some 3. We'll see that coming up. Western Kentucky-wise, Katie Hutchinson's your 1, or Matthew Henry, one of the 2. Matthew Henry played really well at Western Illinois last year. 6,400 is a nice price tag. I'm not sure if people are going to default to Hutchinson, given that he's the top returner. So those are your top 2 there. Those are the guys I want to get the most exposure to, because one of them is going to be the number 1 on this team, and I think Maverick McIver is going to sling it all over the yard here. Musa Berry is in play as at 4,400 as the 3rd wide receiver for Western Kentucky, and Cameron Flowers is also going to be on the field a good bit for Western Kentucky at 5K. Flowers is more of a shot play. I would limit my exposure to those last 2, but if you need a last piece in, they're viable there, especially if you want an extra stacking point in there. Looking at the other wide receivers here. So Kansas, I'm only playing Emmanuel Henderson. He's going to be the clear number 1 to me. I think he's a very Luke Grimm. Now with Luke Grimm, Lawrence Arnold both gone, Quentin Skinner all gone. Daniels lacks his normal target share. I think Henderson's the safe play here. And if I was playing a Kansas guy, I'm going to play Henderson with Jalen Daniels a good bit as a stack pairing. Sam Houston-wise, I think they're going to have to sling it around, trying to keep up with Western Kentucky. That's going to lead me to Quavez Humphreys. He's going to be in a few lineups here. He's a former number 1 there. And then the second guy is going to be Malik Phillips. He's going to be a decent value at 4,500. He should play out of the slot. And as I know, Phil Longo loves to hammer that slot position. Seen it with Josh Downs, seen it with Will Pauling, seen it with Daz Newsome at North Carolina. So those are viable options for Sam Houston if you think they try to throw the ball a good bit, which I think Longo's system tends to lean that way. Now, the top value play for me is Brandon White at Hawaii. But the only thing I don't like about this is I don't really want to play 2 Stanford guys, but I think I'm going to be forced into it some. So if I'm going to play Stanford pass catcher with Micah Ford, it's going to be CJ Williams is one of them at 4,500. I'm going to split that exposure a little bit with Malik Phillips because he's the same price. Musa Berry, who's a similar price. Sam Roush, the tight end, he's going to be the number one wide receiver, CJ Williams. Sam Roush is going to be the top tight end. I think Frank Reich has a track record of utilizing a tight end. He's going to play a more NFL style scheme. So that puts him in play at 3,800. I think Sam Roush is a viable punt option there. I will have some exposure, and we'll see that in a second. And then finally, Bryce Farrell. He's been getting some hype from Reich himself, and he's been making some plays. In Showdown, he's a very viable option because he's stone min. Here, he's stone min at 3K. So I will jam a little bit in there. I'm limiting that exposure, but if I need the salary in order to get what I want in the rest of my lineup, I have zero problem playing Bryce Farrell at 3K, just taking a shot. And if he catches a pass, basically, it's everything I'm looking for. If he finds the end zone, I mean, he's just a winner here. So basically, I would say over half of my teams that I build are going to have Maverick McIver and Micah Alahado. My base for most of these teams is going to have Daniel Highshaw and Micah Ford, and then we're going to play with these other 4 spots. I'm intending to run 4 wideouts just because normally I'd want a running back here in most weeks. In this week, because we have 2 air raid offenses in only 3 games and very limited running back, we have a confused running back room of Sam Houston, an expensive running back on a team with a sub 20-point total in Fresno, and then we're playing the Stanford back, we're playing the Kansas back, and the other 2 teams are air raid offenses that don't use running backs much. So I'm just going to run 4 wide. And I think a lot of what I'm going to run is going to be that, and it's just going to rip 4 wide receivers. So you can easily go Matthew Henry, Nick Sinacle, Jackson Harris, who's going to be the number 3 at Hawaii. And then you could sling Josiah Freeman if you wanted to bring back here for that Fresno, thinking Fresno's got to throw the ball a lot. So that's the baseline, right? And then you have plenty of options to mix and match all these guys in here. You can get you got Henry. Let me pull Henry back in. So like Henry, and then if we want to mix this up, you can go Quay. You can go Quay Ashley here, or Quay Ashley. Quay Ashley's the running back. Quay Humphreys can go in. Then that gets you to that 4,500 mark. That's where I would not roster 2 Sam Houston guys. So that's where CJ Williams would come in from Stanford. You can't roster 2 Sam Houston wide receivers. I just don't see that being a viable option. Another thing to look at, I played around with this one here. So if I get rid of him and throw in Quay Humphreys and throw in Papeli Ashlock, so then I end up in this weird situation. I've debated this, and I might play one like this where I get Sam Roush in here. The thing I don't like about this is I don't have any receivers for Maverick McIver, and he's not going to run. So he's going to have to throw for 300 plus yards and 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns to kind of get where I want him to be. And if I don't have any wide receivers for him, how am I going to win? Like, that's where I've played with this, and I don't know that I'm going to play it. I think I'm going to end up playing a different variant here. Similarly, like I said, just mix and match these guys in. Sinacle's going to end up having to be a guy that's in a lot. You can get KD Hutchinson in there, Jackson Harris, and then you can get those 5,100 guys. You can get KD. You can get, let's go to White, because I think White's very pertinent in this situation at 3,500. So Brandon White's going to be very very pertinent to be able to play what you want, right? Because in this situation now I've got a 2, a 1, and then I can easily jump in Emmanuel Henderson. You can play KD with Henry here. You could play Jackson Harris. Like there's so many ways you could play Jackson Harris with Ashlock. So you want to throw Ashlock in here, you throw Jackson Harris in. Now that's where you end up with that 3-man Hawaii. So that's I love this. Give me all of this. This is one of those like I wish this game was at 10 p.m. because you get that late night hammer and you just have you'd be flying up the leaderboard with this thing. You're hoping in that situation that Ford runs for 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, and then these guys just start eating and just throws for 400. He's had multiple 100-yard games. He had a 100-yard game against Stanford 2 years ago. These guys catch a touchdown. He throws for 4. These guys catch 3 of them. 100 yards here. Maybe he breaks a big play or something. Jackson Harris revenge game against Stanford. Like there's so many ways to be able to play this thing. You can also go Henry here. I actually like this idea. So you go that double there, and then that gives you can go double with Jackson Harris here. You can go Quay Humphreys. So like that's where you get all of this. You get two Hawaii wideouts. I know it's the 3 and the 4, but you get the guaranteed number 1 production here. It's just so many ways you can mix and match this thing and just put it together to make stuff work. You can go Sam Roush over Brandon White, but let's look at when you go LaShawn Williams. So there are some LaShawn Williams options here. So let's get LaShawn Williams in here. This would be the other base variant off of this. So we can get so you can get okay. Yeah. This is the other 3-way that I really like for Hawaii is playing that, and this. So this is the other way to be able to play that 3. So you're leveraging the field with that, and you get an extra top end Hawaii wideout. So you can go either Western Kentucky guy here, whichever one you believe in most, Matthew Henry or Hutchinson. And then you get Ashlock, you get White, you get Sinacle. So then that's a little bit more palatable. There's easy ways to be able to make that work with Williams and with Highshaw. But like I said, you're going to want to play as many variants. A team with a variation of McIver Alihado with some stack is going to probably take down the tournament. That's going to be hard for them not to. All right, so let's throw Jalen Daniels in this super flex, and I will show you guys what I'm thinking with these lineups. So with Daniels, let's just throw Emmanuel Henderson in. So this is going to end up being the base for me for this variant. I have one Donaldson team, but we'll hit that in a second. For the most part, you're looking at, I would say, you're going to have to get a Western Kentucky guy in there. So Hutchinson or Henry. You can go Hutchinson and Henry and then still be able to go 4,600. That gives you that Malik Phillips variant. Or Musa Berry if you really want to triple Western Kentucky. But I want the bring back of Malik Phillips, buying that he's going to play that slot position. So I like this. This is going to be something that gets entered. And then you can go KD, Flowers, Cam Flowers. So we talked about him being the number 3, caught a couple touchdowns from McIver in the spring. So that's good. And then you get Sinacle. So that way you get a little piece of Hawaii. I'm a little bit nervous to full fade Hawaii. I think Sinacle is going to end up being a prevalent part of that offense. He's probably better in half point than full point. He's going to be more of a touchdown play. But he's similar to Ashlock, though. So that's another way to play that. And then let's look at if you play this with Henry, and then let's play Donaldson here. So if you play Donaldson, that's where you get into the Bryson Farrell range for me. So Bryson Farrell at 3K. I debated Black here for Sam Houston, but I don't think I'm going to end up going there. I think I'm going to end up on Bryson Farrell because, as you can see, he's projected starter. He hasn't been great for his career, but hope is that they don't have much to turn to. So that would be the way that I'm going to end up switching that. And then that way I can get the top two with McIver, still get Emmanuel Henderson paired with him, a one-off play there. And then you're just kind of praying that Hawaii doesn't bury you in this situation, which I don't love, but we're going to have plenty of Hawaii. So that'll be okay. So let's throw Ali Hotto in here, and then we're just going to play Highshaw because I don't know how not to play Highshaw. Apparently, I'm going to have a ton of him. If Highshaw gets hurt, I'm going to have a couple shots with LaShawn Williams that we're going to have to pray hold up here. So you got Sinakal, Humphreys, and then that gets you Jackson Harris. So you can easily play the double there. You get Humphreys. And then play, that's kind of the I'm fading. You're going to have a I'm fading Western Kentucky scenario when you do this, and you're going to have a I'm fading Hawaii scenario when you play the Western Kentucky side. Like there are options there. You can go Sinakal, Ashlock, and then Sam Roush right here. You could go 3 Hawaii guys. That is in play. And then you can also go, hey, I'm going to play Henry, and then that gets you to that Malik Phillips spot right here. You can go Malik Phillips, you can go CJ Williams right there, and then you can also go Henry, Ashlock, and then that gets you back to Brandon White. So that's kind of what I'm looking at all across the board here. And then that way I get all this piece together. And that'll give me, I have 20 variants set up with this. More than half are going to be the Alejado McIver options with a ton of stacking of their wideouts and a ton of Highshaw Ford. And then there's going to be a little bit of subset where it's Jalen Daniels with each of them because I just believe that those guys are going to be what makes the difference. I think they're going to be the highest owned quarterback plays, but they're going to be that way for a reason because they're most likely to factor in. So let's get off to a good start, win some money out the gate, be profitable, hopefully take down a tournament, and see if we can get this thing going before week 1. It's always good to bank some profit before week 1 and know you're on the right track. Typically early in the season is when I'm going to hit the biggest because most people lack knowing about Matthew Henry, or guys that transferred up from the FCS, things like that, who moved around where, who's starting where. So that's where we can kind of take advantage of that right out the gate, and we can take advantage of pricing. So hopefully we get off to the hot start and we can win some money. And I will be back soon, and I'll be breaking these down every week. Goodbye.